So good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever in the world you are. I'm Alethea, the PADA Youth Ambassador, and thank you very much for joining us today for PADA Youth Symposium 2020, Part 1, our keynote speech, The Future of Tourism. Today's keynote speech will be delivered by Euromonitor International to see what the future of travel and tourism will look like in a post-COVID-19 world. But before I begin, I would like to welcome our PADA CEO, Dr. Mario Hardy, to give us our opening remarks for this PADA Youth Symposium. Dr. Mario, please.
Thank you, Alicia. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. As Alicia mentioned, wherever you are around the world, it's a great pleasure to be here with you, at least virtually. This is how business is now conducted these days, at least for the time being and for the last few months, and likely for months to come. Who would have known a year ago that we would find ourselves in such a situation that we are today? For those of you who are mostly actually students participating to this event today, you probably have tons of questions about your future and the future of travel moving forward and how our business will transform. And I have no doubt that the travel and tourism industry will be different moving forward from what it was in the past. We talked a lot about sustainability, and we have been talking about it for quite some time. And I know that during the presentation today, we'll be discussing a little bit about the meaning of sustainability in the future, because that is also changing. Technology is now playing a big part of our world and will be playing an increasing part in travel and tourism moving forward. How we travel, the different process that we have to go through, touchless check-in at the airport, at hotels, in different facilities, payment, mobile payment, and lots of other technologies that was already here, but not maybe implemented as fast as we were expecting before. Now these are actually being accelerated into our future. There is a future for travel. I am actually convinced of that. I've seen many articles almost on a daily basis trying to predict when we will restart travel, how things will change moving forward. Seen one this morning that predicts that 2021 will be a repetition of 2020, where there will be no travel. Now, we look at these articles with a grain of salt, because actually things are changing on a daily basis. It's really hard to forecast at the moment, to predict what the future will be when things are changing so rapidly, and there's so much unknown around COVID-19 and the implication, how fast it spread, how it's spreading, and etc. And the solutions that will be found moving forward, either a vaccine or treatments, or a combination of those, or simply having the right protocols in place to ensure to minimize the risk and allow people to travel and cross borders moving forward. But as I said, I am very convinced we will travel. And as soon as we can, I'm sure likely many of you will be jumping on a plane and go and discover the beautiful world that we have again. I certainly hope for that. I certainly pray for that. And I hope we can all see each other in person next time, as opposed to be here virtually. So I look forward to listening to Hafiz today and Euromonitor, which is one of PADA's partners, and getting their perspective on the research they've done on the perception of the future of tourism moving forward. So thank you again for joining this event today. Please, I hope you enjoyed this session. Stay in touch with PADA, follow us on social media, and look forward again to see you in person next time. For those of you in Lausanne, for the university who's joining us, I'm really sad that actually we cannot be with you this time physically as we were meant to be. City that I visited many times before and always enjoy going back. Your mayor has been very, very friendly to PADA for many years, and we've known each other for a number of years already. And again, I look forward to visiting your university and as well as visiting the city in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mario Hardy, for those opening remarks. Now, before we go any further, I'd like to thank Lausanne Normal University for being our partners in the PADA Youth Symposium 2020. So please welcome Professor Johnson Yu, Director and Dean of the Department of International Affairs, College of International Education, representing Lausanne Normal University, for his opening remarks to this event. Dr. Johnson Yu, please. Dr. Johnson, could you turn on your video and unmute yourself? While we're waiting for Dr. Johnson to turn on his video and unmute himself, please feel free to use the chat function to introduce yourself, as I see many of you are already doing. We would love to see where everyone's from and what country you're from and why you're here. So Dr. Johnson, thank you very much for joining us. We would love to hear your opening remarks, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, just now it's some of the problem of the collection. This is Johnson from the International Office of National University. It's my great honor to present here with especially due to the COVID-19. Though COVID-19 is still spreading in the world, we never give up fighting against the pandemic, and we have always called on strengthening the international cooperation to prevent the second wave of it. The Youth Symposium 2020, co-sponsored by PADA and the National University, just provides a platform at the moment for young people who are and will be interested in tourism. I personally wish the symposium successful and fruitful first. Next, please allow me to have a brief introduction of my university and the School of Tourism. The Shandong University, as a provincial public university founded in 1978, is situated in the landscape city of Leshan, where it's a location of two world natural and cultural heritages, and also is a permanent venue of the Sichuan International Tourism Exchange Exposition. The university has the 19 schools, 61 undergraduate majors, covering 9 disciplines of literature, science, engineering, education, economics, management, law, agriculture, and art. It has over 18,000 full-time Chinese students and over 120 overseas students for degree programs. There are over 1,380 faculty members and administrative staff. Nearly 80 faculty members take as a part-time master and PhD supervisors in Wuhan University and extra. The university has established many research institutes which have outstanding characteristic studies in renowned masters, special education, development, and utilization of forest and bamboo resources, world heritage protection, tourism, social governance, and internet, natural language intelligence processing, and waste resource utilization. The university attaches a great importance to international exchange and cooperation, which has formed close relationship with many countries and universities, now with whom a wide range of activities have been carried out on scientific research, think tanks, exchanges between staff and students, and cooperation on undergraduate and postgraduate education. Meanwhile, as a membership of PATA, by use of opportunity of tourism association, the university has been carrying out comprehensive collaboration with PATA and employed special advisor to PATA CEO Professor Zhang as our experts in the guidance of tourism promotion. The university has always adhered to the concept of being education-oriented, practiced the model of ambitious together, motivated throughout, studying in sincerity, practicing earnestly, and promotes the core spirit of being the first and being the perfect. The university is heading for distinctive teacher education, multidisciplines, and applied university. Next, I would like to introduce the School of Tourism. The School of Tourism
I think we might have lost connection from Professor Johnson. I'm so sorry about that. We will just wait for a few moments for them to come back. He's back.
Tourism is one of schools of the Shandong University which have a strong influence and high reputation in China. There are other majors in tourism, management, human geography, and urban and resort planning, tourism education, and hotel management education. There are 39 faculty members, including 30 full-time teachers. The school is one of the strongest tourism schools compared to other similar universities. It has established 5 research institutes in the of tourism. In recent years, it has applied for 2 national level and 30 provincial level projects and published over 100 research papers and more than 10 monographs and textbooks. The school cultivates applied professionals in management to meet the needs of the development of modern leisure, tourism, vacation, and exhibition industries. The school keeps on the individual development of students and of professional skills. All explores creative HTML such as school, enterprise, running mail, arts and language, plus mail, and innovative and entrepreneurial education. In the past 3 years, students have won more than 200 national and provincial awards in competitions. The employment rate has ranked top for 3 consecutive years, and graduates have received unanimous praise from employers. So that's all for my presentation. Welcome to my university and my city for business and for leisure. Thanks to our participants. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Professor Johnson, for that introduction to Leshan Normal University as well as Leshan as a city and destination. We enjoyed it very much. And thank you once again for Leshan Normal University's support of the PADA Youth Symposium. Now, so before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that please use the chat to introduce yourself. We already have many people from Hong Kong, Indonesia, Philippines, from all the way from Hawaii tuning in. So welcome everybody from around the world. We're very happy to have you here today. During our keynote speech, Mr. Hafizuddin Haslir will be giving our keynote speech, and he's the Regional Business Development Manager at Euromonitor International. He's been forging strong partnerships with the public sector in both syndicate and customized solutions across B2B, B2G, and B2C industries to include tourism, commodity, certification boards, research institutes, and FDI agencies. So he's based in Singapore, and Hafiz has a bachelor's degree in Biomedical Engineering, and he's our keynote speaker today. Mr. Hafiz? Hi, welcome.
Hello, hi, greetings.
Okay, so before I turn over the reins to you, I just want to remind everyone that during Mr. Hafiz's presentation, we will be having a Q&A session right at the end. So please use the Q&A function of the Zoom to ask all your questions. We will also be, you can also download Hafiz's presentation from the Euromonitor website, and we will drop the link in the chat box below. So Hafiz, over to you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Alithia, and thank you, Dr. Mario and Professor Johnson, for having me for this PADA session, this Youth Symposium series. Let me just start off by sharing my screen. Okay, Alithia, can you confirm if you can see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me just start off by maybe first introducing myself, right? And then I'll probably get on the way with this today's agenda on the future of travel. Okay, so once again, greetings from Euromonitor International, from wherever you are in the world. And thank you once again for PADA Youth Symposium series to invite me. My name is Hafiz, right? You can just call me Hafiz. And I am the Regional Manager for Trade and Government across the Asia Pacific, right? Today, on behalf of Euromonitor International, I'll be sharing the research into travel and the future of travel for 2040. But before that, I think since I do see more than hundreds of students all around the world who have joined us, I think it's only right for me to engage you, all right? So I do have a poll to gauge your understanding on how you think tourism will evolve in the future. So Alithia, if you can share that poll with them. Okay, so the question is, how do you think tourism will evolve in the future? And there are 4 choices. One is increased usage of AR and VR, all right, augmented reality, virtual reality, or more sustainable elements in the travel journey, growth in domestic or the short-haul travel, or lastly, incorporating more digital touch points. So maybe from now till then, I'll give about 2 minutes for everyone here to join me and participate in this poll. Okay, And then I will probably give you an introduction to Euromonitor itself. Let me see if I can track the participation. Sorry, Alithia. I assume you can check whether they have clicked, right?
Hi. Yeah. So
Okay, good.
we actually have 123 out of 182 who have already voted. That's 68%. Do you want us to end the poll now?
Yes, I think we can. Maybe just maybe a countdown for 10 seconds, all right?
Okay.
So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's see.
So we're going to share the results now.
Okay, there's some interesting stats. So 47% of you out of the sample size of 185 have chosen more sustainable elements in the travel journey. And the reason why I showed this poll at the very start is because I'm going to touch on these elements throughout the presentation. And surprisingly, this actually resonates with what the consumers expect through our consumer surveys as well. So thank you everyone for participating in this poll. So without further ado, let's move into the session. Okay, so first, I will start with looking at the impact of COVID-19 on travel and tourism in terms of demands and different categories. And then I will look into the consumers' behavior that change in the short to mid to long term. We will then look at the innovations and the best case studies that we can relate and compare to or learn from. Euromonitor has also provided a future glimpse into the future, how 2040 ought to look like. And with that, let me move into the first section. Okay, so those of you who are unfamiliar with Euromonitor International, we are a global market research company with over 15 offices all around the world. So those of you who are located globally, remotely, comfortably in your positions, you can see our regional offices there. I'm based in Singapore right now, okay? But this global network has been really critical when supporting our global partners from governments, academics, corporates, banks, so on and so forth, to have people on the ground to inform them on what's happening, especially during these unprecedented times of COVID-19. So the first chapter I'll be looking into it will be the COVID-19 impact on travel. Here we have the world inbound arrivals, right? Referring to the international visitors who travel outside of a country of residence and stay for more than 24 hours in a destination country. Now in 2019, more than 1.4 billion international trips were taken. And since COVID-19, due to shutdowns, travel bans, and restrictions, we are now expecting travel to fall by more than 50% this year. That is about 800 million trips. We have also seen the fluid nature of COVID-19 in this pandemic, starting from China and then spreading through Asia, eastwards towards Europe, Latin America, United States, and Africa and Middle East. So indeed, the virus is showing its global reach. But that being said, everything is moving at a tactical nature and is of course highly determined on the availability of vaccine. Because of that, you might have developed different forecast scenarios that are more pessimistic, because we have never seen such a crisis in our lifetime. And we ought to build that into our forecasts and modeling predictions. Now, on the right of the chart, we have COVID-19 pessimistic tree, right? Where COVID-19 would take much longer in terms of restrictions and lockdowns, severity of the impact in terms of economic and social developments. These are the set of dire assumptions that we have based on internationally, and what could be the worst case scenario. So here we have predicted that there will be a drop in potential demand by 61%. But that being said, our expectations is at the baseline of more than 50%, and it would take about 3 years for recovery to go to pre-crisis to 2019 levels. Obviously, if things change and we experience a second wave, such as signs in Europe and recently in Indonesia, it would take longer to revert to pre-crisis levels to 4 to 5 years. Not every region around the world has been affected. This looking at the value of inbound receipts by region. You can see Asia Pacific dropping by more than 40%. Western Europe, prior to the pre-crisis, were the leading recipients of inbound receipts that are hit very hard along the likes of Middle East and North America. What's interesting with this data is we are going to see a shift due to COVID-19. We expect Asia Pacific to recover faster as compared to more mature regions, such as Western Europe. Now this year, they will take about 30% share of international receipts and take over Western Europe over the next 5 years. So that acceleration towards Asia is happening much faster than what we were seeing even prior to the crisis. And this may be due to the pre-crisis trends, such as the rise of economic development in Asia and the rise of middle-income population. That said, not saying that we won't see recovery in other regions. Great to see, for example, North America will recover and grow strongly by 20% CAGR over the next 5 years. Now we know about the unprecedented impact has taken its toll in various sectors of the travel industry. Hence, of course, this knock-on different travel categories as well. Now, I will just highlight a few relationships here. We see, for example, hotels, right? I expected to fall over 40% this year. Same for short-term rentals. But you can see a slightly less impact marginally for short-term rentals. Similarly with airlines, there's difference in terms of performance levels if you start looking at schedule versus low-cost carriers, where low-cost carriers may benefit from a slight trading down effect of consumers who might be a little bit more cautious once they feel more comfortable about traveling. Now, there are some other areas that are benefiting from the recovery first, as we have seen ongoingly, particularly for domestic tourism, such as spas and attractions. They will experience a sharp decline, of course, but not as severe as other categories. Of course, there are more heavily impacted sectors, such as the intermediaries, to include cruise and package holidays, with cruise being the worst impacted, with a drop close to 60% of value sales. So as I mentioned on domestic tourism, that's one of the ways destinations are looking to kickstart their economies and their slow route to recovery. Now, looking at resilience across the world, domestic accounts 68% when you factor in domestic versus international. So some regions such as North America and Asia Pacific are highly dependent on domestic visitors. And that itself will of course present efforts and focus on marketing plans as they build to back their economies. In some cases, such as Philippines and Thailand, whose domestic market is sufficiently big to sustain their recovery efforts before relying on international market. So we will see a strong V-shaped recovery, relationship on the likes of Asia Pacific and Australasia. And Asia Pacific is ahead of the curve, partly because they have gone through the pandemic first and going out the other side. And Australasia, who have been setting the example of trying to maintain the disease in a very well-managed manner, as we have seen in New Zealand. Now, there are some trends that continue to be very important to the industry that shift to digitalization and the move online, equally embracing mobile travel sales. Now, this is part of our digital consumer survey, right? Not to say online hasn't taken a hit this year. Online travel sales are expected to drop by at least 40% and mobile sales by 35%. But when you look for the next 5 years to 2025, these areas will continue to be the drivers of value growth. And looking at penetration of mobile of total online sales, it will actually increase and be accelerated during this COVID-19, taking about almost 50% of total online sales in 2025. Now, when we speak to travel companies and destinations about whether they offer a mobile app, so this was based on April 2020, only 41% of them said they offer. And when we conducted our digital consumer survey, consumers responded their preference on key features, from search engines to appreciating peer advice on destinations to seamless experiences of easy site navigation, digital wallet checkout, and of course, all of us here enjoy fee upgrades. Now, in terms of what we are seeing from our research, we see a pickup in the short to mid-term in terms of domestic side, with a greater interest in adventure, nature-based and beach tourism, wellness and luxury, along with sustainable options, which agrees with your sentiments, like such as camping, glamping, and glamp events, which we see a lot of popularity there, eco-pods, short-term rentals that offers a little space and privacy. And of course, this goes down to certain market segments that are driving the economy, driving the recovery, whether they are families, such as in China, interest from pent-up demand from Gen Z and Y. When we look at travel companies, we are seeing greater issues of balancing social and environmental. So during the pre-crisis, climate change was pretty much the dominant issue. And now we see an equal stress on both. And sustainability is also being highly recognized for travel companies, which again on the accelerating component shows interesting statistics there. Now on the downside, because of travel bans, restrictions, and we still have over 60% of world destinations under these bans based on UNWTO, we are seeing a stop and pause in long-term international markets, long-haul international markets. So overcrowding and unsustainable business models, such as mass tourism, is not something consumers want post-pandemic. They don't want to be missing with the crowd. They want to go off the beaten track and have some personal space and enjoy nature. Now, equally, big questions on business corporate travel and MICE as companies continue to have restrictions for employees traveling. So believe it or not, I would love to go to Bangkok right now to visit Pata, to visit my partners, to visit Philippines and Malaysia, where I get to meet my regional colleagues. So that being said, baby boomers, a certain population segment, have also been much more exposed to the pandemic in terms of number of cases and sadly deaths. And we will be a bit more cautious and we'll need more information before they start traveling again. Now talking about sustainability, a sustainable mode of transport such as super jumbos that will be retired soon, question mark about mega cruises that have been seen to contribute to the over-tourism. Again, these are areas that we see decelerating for travel companies, such as areas of sustainable sourcing and recycling. So hopefully, with Euromonitor as well, we hope that this is a temporary blip in the importance travel companies place on paying attention to these areas. Now, on the same note, now looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, we have a Voice of Industry Sustainability Survey that was conducted early July this year. And what we are seeing is we can compare travel industry engagements with the 17 SDGs compared to all other industries that we research and speak to at Euromonitor. Now, we already know that 65% of global consumers are worried about climate change and wants to have a positive impact on daily activities. However, when we look at the travel engagements with SDG 13, we can see that only 50% is still under 50%. So unfortunately, we can still see a big disconnect between what travel are doing and what consumers are concerned about. Now, that's not to say areas that travel is not performing well. So for example, in SDG 9, under industry, innovation, and infrastructure, travel performs very well as compared to all other industries we talk to. We talk to, with regards to SDG 11, for example, which is the sustainable cities and communities. This, we can see the impact of travel in the production of smart cities and sustainable elements in their planning. Now we move into the next chapter, which we look into the consumers, right, and how they are feeling and changes in terms of behavior. Now, so when WHO, the World Health Organization, declared the global pandemic in March, we went into a period of lockdown, particularly in areas of Europe and then followed by Americas. What we are seeing on global consumers is that they have pulled back on traveling abroad. This is expected when we look at the short to mid-term, long-term effects. They are planning to reduce international travel over the midterm, and at least 20% of them will reduce international travel permanently and will not go back to previous pre-crisis levels of travel what they were enjoying beforehand. This, of course, correlates with holidaying closer to home, whether it's local destinations or intra-regionally. We're also seeing the impact of their spending habits, where they reduce overall spending in the short to mid-term. Now, the importance of social element of sustainability, with a really strong more than 40% of people that we spoke to, we see the importance of people and how brands treat customers and employees that remains as an important factor and an important and a permanent shift that we are seeing. Now we have also looked at specific source markets and what consumers value in terms of travel and travel destinations. So globally, over 60% are looking for safe destinations, but this itself varies in different parts of the market, such as UK, which has greater importance as compared to China, Germany, and US. Now for China, the priority is unique and authentic experiences and value for money. Sorry, unique travel experiences and value for money. And while in Germany, it's more dominant for authentic and local experiences that resonates more. So we have also data here on importance of sustainability and having minimal impact. But when you combine that with travel with purpose and giving back to the community, over 64% of them says this is important to them. So it's increasingly interesting to see this shift on positive impact to the environment and social communities during this COVID-19. Now, we ask the question, what types of sustainability actions are important? So over 57% of them say that they support local businesses and communities when travel abroad. Okay, this is from our Voice of Industry survey. And over 50% say they will stay in eco-friendly accommodation. And one other interesting thing from this chart is over 10% of travelers who choose not to fly. So we believe the flight shaming movement we saw last year during the pre-crisis has had a little bit of impact, but it's still not a major impact compared to other actions that consumers are choosing, such as taking greener transport or using tour guides that are using green certifications. Now, here's the big question on post-pandemic. What will be the permanent shift? When we spoke to travel companies and destinations, 76% of them say that they expect consumers to be more concerned about sustainability post-pandemic. However, when we spoke to the same group with regards to if they are going to pause or postpone sustainability development, 42% of them say that they will postpone the development of new sustainable products. So again, there's this disconnect with what consumers expect and what companies are doing in the short term. And there in itself lies a great opportunity. Now let's look at some innovations and best case studies that we can watch. So some information on areas of investment for travel companies and what has impacted the past 12 months and the next 5 years forward. We are seeing a great focus on big data analytics that helps to drive personalization, tailored recommendations, and delivering that, of course, improve user experience. We expect also AI, right, artificial intelligence, to increase greatly on how important it is for travel companies. In the short term, we are already seeing a big shift towards AR and VR during the lockdown, and that is expected to continue in the next 5 years as consumers sought entertainment and destinations to engage with potential visitors. Excuse me. Now, when we have the functions that AI can deliver, in the short term, in our digital consumer survey, excuse me, we are expecting that to focus on, I'm so sorry. Okay, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Okay, let me resume. So when we have the functions that AI can deliver, in the short term, we are expecting that to focus on improving information to customers and website search functionalities. But over the next long term, next 5 years, that shift will move towards voice-powered applications, as you see here. in the next 5 years, yeah, such as Apple, Siri, Google, etc. Now, biometrics in the short term is about consumer-facing applications, right, such as check-ins to phones. But over long term, using biometrics integrated with blockchain or ID management systems will provide a safe, secure, and something that is heavily trusted. Now, in terms of some case studies, we have put out a few for comparison, but definitely there are a lot more innovations that are coming our way. But in this example, we have Faroe Islands, right? Faroe Islands provides a unique virtual experience called remote tourism. And consumers can, from the safety of their own homes, can control local tour guides to make them run, jump, or explore. And this type of virtual experience really resonates. Already 46% of global consumers value. But of course, that's not to say the real world experiences don't matter. And still a very high 77% of consumers prefers this. But for the younger Gen Z, do appreciate this virtual experience and gamification elements. Another example is a brand with purpose case study, and that is Pontopia, which is a service created a couple of years ago in 2018 that helps visitors to cities or destinations in Italy and US, where those who need a bit more special help, such as the elderly or younger families with younger children. So we are seeing an emergence of startup companies who are using SDG, right, global goals as a blueprint to deliver their company and results. Of the travel companies that we speak to, 37% of them are purpose-driven, which is actually lower than the rest of the industries who are saying it at 51%. So that unfolds another opportunity or a challenge. Here we have another example called Nest, right, NEST, which is a modular innovation building of EMPA based in Switzerland, where they use digitalization, technology, renewable energy, and working in the frame of circular economy. Now, this is an important area, as we know there is a lot of carbon emissions and the need to reduce waste and conserve energy to meet the 2030 agenda. Now, quite reassuring on that note to see 53% of travel companies who have aimed to invest in energy initiatives in the next 5 years. And more so, 57% of travel companies plan to have their investment in circular economy. Of course, in travel and tourism, it offers a fantastic opportunity to engage with nature. As we have mentioned, this move towards nature-based tourism, with almost 30% of consumers who are seeking that, and at least 40% in cultural immersion. So Brim Explorer is an example of an electric cruise ship in Norway. And this cruises from the coast of Norway to the Arctic with morning yoga classes that travelers can do. And then there's Borneo a la carte, offering truly a cultural immersion with the local tribes in Borneo. There are a lot more other worthy mentions, such as Flyzoo in China, where we see a lot of technology that enable features that are minimizing human contact, from check-in to self-activation elevators by facial recognition. And then there's also Flygy, which offers a virtual tour and live streams, right, to help long-haul markets stay connected with Chinese tourists. And then there's also, in the example of Singapore, there's Klook, which is an organization that offers home-based and domestic experiences, such as wine sampling, yoga, handicraft convenient, easily accessible alternative to overseas experience. With that in mind, let's look into the last chapter, which is a future glimpse into the future. So let me walk you through this imagined world in 2040. And here, we have arrived at the hotel. As you can see, the hotel has its own wind turbine, right? And it's creating its own energy, and actually has a chance to be climate positive, of giving back more energy back to the local communities than what they actually use. There's this seamless integration of using technology to enhance customer experience. So robots collecting cases, digital avatars welcoming guests, and making sure they get what they need. So everything is led by the consumer, making sure they are satisfied with high level of personalization and customization. And this weaving in of technology with the real world to some sort provides an omni-channel approach to enjoying hospitality. Another example on the future of air travel, this case. We are moving a lot more consumer-centric and seamless flow through the airport, onto the airplane, powered by biometrics. And this person could even have an internal chip with biometric data, enabling them to walk straight into the plane. No need for paper tickets or passport. We are not that far from that, to be honest. But in terms of integrating this with blockchain and IoT, means that everything can be safe, secure, and a lot more seamless. So it is also important that the whole experience is sustainable. So we can see a big shift in decarbonized aeroplanes and the use of biofuels, hybrids, aircraft, so far and so forth. So on that note, we could have drones, right? In the future of urban mobility, delivering packages, taking cars and vans off the road, electric eVTOLs, aircraft, smart roads, etc. And of course, everything will be pretty much on demand, point to point, so we can remove unnecessary vehicles on the road and allowing us to hit the carbon targets of reducing emissions. Now, many cities and downtown areas can also be car-free, which can be fantastic for visitors and residents alike. And lastly, the future of an online travel agent, an OTA. So for their own comfort of sitting room, beaming avatar can advise families and friends on what can be a perfect trip. Everything from emotion-based, attribute-led, using emotion recognition technology to match supply and demand nicely. And of course, giving that sustainability information in terms of impact, socioeconomic and environmental impacts on the trip. So that can allow the customer to make really informed decisions. So the more data-driven this is, the more science-based it is, the more positive impact it can on reducing carbon footprint. So there's a lot more we can think of, but here I have two scenarios. All right, first is the negative, where nothing changes, business remains as usual. All right, so there's global warming of over 3 degrees. All right, rising emissions from fossil fuels to overcrowding of cities, and in the worst case, a recurring pandemic that can run rampant. And hopefully, we are moving towards something more sustainable where we meet the targets of 2030 agenda. Now, on a positive note, when we are on track to meet the Sustainable Development Goals targets, we get to reduce carbon emissions to 1.5 degrees Celsius target. We can perhaps even go to net zero by 2040, using a lot more of clean energy and renewables and better integration of nature and technology. And lastly, of course, a greater resilience towards other diseases post-COVID-19, at the same time, having a nice balance between health and environment. Now, I have just, across the duration that I've shared with you, these are 5 key takeaways for my session on Travel 2040. So first, in the short to mid-term, there will be a move away from international to destinations closer to home. And in the mid-term, there will be lower levels of consumer spending. Now, we are still adapting to the new normal that continues to raise the importance of health and safety, but we do not lose sight of enhancing the customer journey and not make it completely a sterile working environment. Now, digital transformation is still very critical for travel business to survive and build resilience over time. And this can only be powered by data and science. Travel bans and destinations that act with a purpose provides a right balance between social, environmental, and economic needs will likely be able to succeed in the long term. Now, we need to act now to drive this radical behavior change, which is why in this session itself, there's a lot of powerful messages in order for us to meet the 2030 global agenda in how we can embrace innovation across industries and creativity and digitalization. So with that, thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I'm sorry for the slight pause.
Thank you so much, Hafiz, for that amazing presentation. I think I learned so much from it. And thank you very much for being our keynote speaker. We are very grateful for your time and attention today. So now we're going to jump into our Q&A section. So if anyone has any questions, please use the Q&A function in Zoom to ask your questions. So while we are waiting for some questions to come in, Hafiz, I wanted to kick us off with some questions of my own.
Okay. A quick question. Do I stop my share?
Yes, you can stop sharing your screen.
Okay, good. All right. Okay. Go ahead, Alithia. Yep.
Great. So I think one of the most interesting points in the presentation was really this slide where you showed us this group that you surveyed, they expected customer demands to focus on sustainability. But at the same time, that same group had actually put a pause on developing their own sustainable products. And you kind of left us hanging with like that line on like, this gives us a lot of opportunity. I wanted to ask you, what do you see happening in the future because of this demand and potentially not being able to supply for this demand because of COVID-19 putting a pause on the development of our sustainable products?
I think in terms of right now, there's a lot of moving elements in tourism. There's definitely the sustainability agenda of 2030, and then there's health concerns, and at the same time, every nation's efforts to recover the tourism industry in contribution to the economy. So when we surveyed this, it was not meant to highlight certain destinations where showed this, that recognize there's this importance of the agenda to meet sustainability. But at the same time, they are working towards domestic efforts to still benefit the socioeconomic communities as well, to support the bottom line. So all this agenda, I think, is not a general statement in saying that they are being irresponsible in postponing, but it's just a matter of seeing how across industries can help to benefit tourism on a whole as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that answer. I think it's true because tourism itself is such a cross-sectional industry, and there's definitely so much opportunity for collaboration and partnerships for tomorrow and partnerships for sustainability that we should be taking advantage of right now during this period of recovery and regrowth.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a pretty interesting question coming in the Q&A box. So it's really about how COVID-19 has kind of changed the trends that we see right now. So do you think the trends seen right now are because we are compromising to the fact that we can't travel at all? Or do you think these trends are going to stay even after travel kickstarts again?
Yeah, so we definitely have the need to travel, right? So we have this pent-up demand, and I'm a heavy traveler, partly in my role, in both a professional sense or in my personal sense. So we have this pent-up demand that will still exist, and we still want to engage with our neighboring countries or even the long-haul markets. But that being said, with this set of restrictions on how everyone is innovating, right? Not only in the travel industry, it's something that we foresee will exist in the next 5 years, especially if it is in the hands of the consumers to make decisions, especially if they require to make informed decisions by perhaps maybe doing AR and VR of that destination that they're going to visit. Because like we saw earlier, there's still a large percentage of people who still value real world experiences that cannot replace virtual. Yeah. So this integration is something that we believe it still meets the SGD agenda. We still believe that there's a lot of opportunities that we can, as consumers, to balance the need with travel companies and whatever they are doing.
Okay, thank you very much. So, one question that we do have is, what are some things that visitors are going to be demanding? And they will be making their decision based on these factors. What are these factors to travel to holiday destinations post-pandemic?
Yeah, so I think first of all, there is that poll that we did at the very start.
Yeah.
Right? So that aligns with some of the components from this slide. But that being said, in terms of the near term, we are definitely going to see, travelers are definitely going to weigh in the travel leniency of that destination, whether they have a few components in place in terms of making it a bit more seamless, less hassle, in terms of whatever they have in terms of making the flow as sterile as possible. And like I said, I think there's a few things post-pandemic, right? There's maybe not assuming post-pandemic, as soon as the travel bans are lifted, this is a matter of perhaps understanding. Sorry, wait, let me get back to that. Yeah. So perhaps what they want to do is having this experience of still enhancing the consumer journey, and not discounting the health factors. Yeah. So the first survey that we did, there's another survey that we did on industry survey, where we actually asked consumers how they rank in terms of travel experiences. And the first three components of enhancing a consumer journey it precedes travel companies who needs to ensure safety and sending information on COVID-19 to travelers. So that still trumps, yeah.
Yeah. So it's good to know that really trumps all other factors right now. And that's probably something that is going to stay with us for a long time. I just read an article this morning, to be honest, that the global pandemic, from this leading science writer, she says that it's a 38-month affair.
Yeah.
So all the optimists that were hoping that 2021 was going to go back to normal, she kind of just shot them down and said, no, it's not going to.
Yeah, that's right. So I think a lot more we see governments there's a greater importance of governments in working with travel industry players in doing travel bubbles, they refer to as travel bubbles, in establishing maybe a short-term to long-term, where we first allow corporate travel first, and then leisure, and at the same time trying to manage that mass tourism issue as well of overcrowding. So there's a lot of greater including the government actions into what the travel industry is doing. So it's great to see startups, the emergence of startups who are balancing these components of balancing social communities and environments, at the same time providing some remote experience as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely agree. I'm really interested in all these startups that are coming up and kind of like destabilizing what we knew travel to be. And that's really an exciting thing to look at. Okay, so speaking of startups or new disruptive technologies, we have a question from Eugene Han, who says, firstly, thank you for the very useful lecture. And secondly, she asked for more explanation about downtown skyport in urban mobility. For example, Uber Air will be launching an air taxi, and is this something similar? Is this what you predict?
Yeah, so there's one example of how we move away from on the road to point development, where of course a lot less carbon emissions can be that they are being produced from this development. That is exactly it, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm really excited to kind of see how like technology really helps us to achieve all the SDG goals, and how startups are actually going to help us push that forward as well and disrupt the industry and bring change, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so I think we have time for one last question. And this is a question that I knew we would get the minute I saw your future of travel slide. Okay. So this question is from an anonymous attendee. We have seen that in the future, there will be a demand on AI, high tech, etc., etc. This is a good strategy and opportunity for the business and tourism industry. But how about humans? How do you predict that the employment rate will be affected?
So that's a very good question. I think that itself, we have seen a lot of tragedies, right, in terms of downsizing, in terms of especially in the airlines industry. That itself, we believe is still going to be temporary, because this will, I think, in terms of employment, as soon as airlines pick up, right, and as soon as cruise pickups, this modes of travel, we're definitely going to see the involvement of human employment, because I think in terms of making everything digital, there's some good and bad to it, because first of all, travel is a people business, right? It involves traveling to people, engaging with tour guides, immersing into cultures. So digital can never replace that completely. Right now, I think let's view this as a silver lining, a great reset on how we can better merge this. As soon as the travel bans are lifted, there'll still be an engagement of real life human experiences to just purely digital. Yeah. So you won't be right to give an estimate how much it will be affected, because right now it is being affected. But it's only a matter of upgrading your skills, still at the same time channeling those efforts towards the bottom line results and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that answer. I think it's true. We just need to take this opportunity to really channel all our passion and energy into learning new things, making sure we upgrade those skills that are going to be popular in the future, as your presentation gave us all those insightful trends that we should be looking out for. So yeah, thank you very much, Hafiz, for your keynote speech for part 1 of the Youth Symposium, The Future of Tourism. So we are going to end this Q&A session. Thank you very much for being our speaker today.
My pleasure.
Okay, so before we end this entire session, I do want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for their support. So the Guam's Visitors Bureau, iFree Group, Mat2 Ventures, Myriad, Talent Basket. These are all our youth sponsors who have actually donated to making sure that the youth are engaged, empowered, and connected. So we want to take a moment to thank them. Also, thank you very much to Euromonitor International for today's super insightful presentation and keynote speech, as well as our partners, Lesha Normal University, for joining us today. So thank you for making Para Youth the platform that it can be. And coming up next, so this is a 4-part series Youth Symposium this year, simply because now we're virtual and we can split it into many days so it won't be tiring for all of us. Tomorrow is our part 2 mentorship session. We've already done all the online applications and we've painstakingly matched our mentors and our youths together based on interest. So I'm very excited for that mentorship session that will engage about 20 mentors and 40 youths coming together to really have a good, meaningful connection and conversation. On Thursday, we're having our student chapter roundtable discussion where all our student leaders from around the world will be able to join us and present on what they've been up to in the academic year 2019 to 2020. So just like how PATA has really adapted and changed the way we interact with our members during this pandemic, so have our student chapters. And we are really interested to see what they've been doing to really engage with their communities on the ground. So if you want to join us for the student chapter roundtable discussion, you can. It will be broadcasted on our Facebook Live. And the last series of our 4-part series is a HR panel discussion titled Getting a Job in a Post-COVID-19 World. I think a lot of us, especially if we are students of tourism, this is the first thing that is on our mind right now as we face a really bad job market. So we have HR experts from Minor Hotels, Visa, and Agoda joining us for a discussion on what we can do to be more resilient, to upgrade ourselves, and what they look out for in terms of employability. So please join us for that session that's happening on Friday. You can go to pata.org and click on events. We are under there and you can register yourself for the different events there. Of course, we have a lot of questions coming in. Where can I download the presentation? How can I get a recording of this session? So the answer is, number 1, you can follow this link that we're going to drop in the chat below to download Euromonitor International's presentation. And we will be sending all registrants recording of this webinar that will be up on PATA's YouTube channel within 1 working day. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at ytp@pata.org. Once again, I'm Alethea, I'm the PATA Youth Ambassador. And thank you very much for joining us today for the PATA Youth Symposium 2020.
Thank you, Alethea. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Hafiz.
My pleasure. If there's any questions, just send my way.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.